Imagine stepping into a mirror, expecting to see your reflection, but instead you find a gateway leading into a world where the concept of you shifts and changes like the clouds in a sky. This might sound like a fantasy, but in a sense, it's a metaphor for a profound truth about our existence. What if I told you that the you, the ego that you so closely identify with, does not actually exist in the way you think it does? This revelation isn't new. Throughout history, philosophers, mystics, and spiritual texts have hinted at this elusive truth. The ego is transient, ever-changing, and ultimately an illusion. Let's dive into this idea, exploring ancient wisdom and modern insights, and see if we can uncover something truly liberating about our existence. Our journey seeks not just to understand, but to experience the freedom from our own constructs. The ego, a construct of mind and time. Our journey begins with understanding what we mean by ego. The ego is not just a psychological term. It's a bundle of perceptions, memories, and social constructs that define who we believe we are. It's like a character in a storybook, constantly rewritten through experiences and interactions. From the moment you were born, every accolade, every failure, every piece of feedback from the world around you has contributed to the construction of this character. This character that you call you is much like an actor playing a role, with lines fed by society, experiences, and personal interactions. The fluidity of this role, shifting with life's changing scenes, highlights the impermanence and malleable nature of the ego. Echoes in spiritual traditions. Interestingly, this view aligns closely with insights found in several spiritual traditions. In Christianity, the concept of dying to oneself reflects a similar thought. Jesus said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me." Matthew 16:24. This denial is about transcending the ego, the small self, to discover a deeper, more universal identity. In Eastern philosophies, the Bhagavad Gita discusses the self beyond the ego. Krishna speaks to Arjuna about the nature of the soul, which is eternal and unchanging, unlike our earthly identities, which are impermanent and subject to decay. This eternal self, or Atman, is the true essence that does not perish when the body dies, contrasting sharply with the ever-changing ego that most identify with during their earthly journey. Philosophers have also grappled with this idea. David Hume, the Scottish Enlightenment philosopher, famously denied the existence of a permanent self that persists over time. He proposed that what we consider the self is nothing more than a bundle of perceptions, like beads on a string, with no actual core holding them together. This radical perspective challenges the intuitive notion that there is a singular, unchanging I at the center of our experiences. Similarly, contemporary discussions in the philosophy of mind and cognitive science suggest that the self is a narrative our brains construct to make sense of the myriad inputs and experiences we encounter. This narrative is not fixed, it is fluid, constantly updated as new information comes in. Philosophers like Daniel Dennett have argued that the self is merely a center of narrative gravity, a convenient fiction that gives coherence to the sprawling data of our sensory experiences. Friedrich Nietzsche, another philosopher who questioned the essence of the self, posited that the ego we so confidently assert is a multitude of competing drives and impulses with no inherent unity. Nietzsche's idea of the self as a play of power and perspectives further destabilizes the traditional view of a coherent, singular identity. These philosophical insights echo the teachings found in many spiritual traditions and provoke us to question the very nature of our being. They invite us to view ourselves not as fixed entities, but as ongoing processes, open to transformation and redefinition, the illusion of continuity. One might ask, if our selves are ever changing, why do we feel a sense of continuity? Why do we feel like the same person we were yesterday? This continuity is an illusion created by our memories and the stories we tell ourselves. Just as a river is never the same from one moment to the next, so too are we in a constant state of flux. To explore this further, consider your own life. Think of who you were 10 years ago, your tastes, your opinions, your values. How much has changed? And yet, amidst all this change, there's a sense that someone was there throughout, experiencing all these changes. This someone is what many spiritual traditions refer to when they speak of the soul or the consciousness that observes the changing ego. Practical implications. Understanding this can be profoundly liberating. If you're not fixed to any version of you, then who you become is open to endless possibilities. You're not defined by your past failures or bound by the labels others have placed on you. Each moment presents a fresh canvas on which to paint a new version of yourself. Moreover, this realization can deepen your compassion and empathy. If you see that others are also not their egos, but are caught in their own stories and struggles, you can meet them with a kind heart and a clear mind. Embracing the illusion, embracing the idea that you do not exist in the way you typically think, is not about negating your experiences or denying your individuality. It's about seeing beyond the superficial layers of the ego to recognize the deeper dimensions of consciousness and interconnectedness with all life. Conclusion: a call to awaken. So, as you walk away from the mirror of your own perceptions, remember that the character you see is just one aspect of a vast, intricate dance of existence. By stepping beyond the ego, you step into a world where every moment is a chance to reinvent, to reconnect, and to realize the unity of all things. This understanding isn't just philosophy, it's a practical pathway to freedom. Freedom from the burdens we carry about who we are supposed to be, and an invitation to discover who we might yet become.